And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away, and we pay directly. We pay a percentage to the state, but the state should fix this. If the state did this from the beginning, it would have been a lot better situation. I think you guys agree with that, right? So I just want to say that Asheville, I know it well. It's a great place, and we're going to have it be a great place again. That was the one that was most severely affected. But North Carolina is going to come back bigger, better, stronger than ever before. And you're going to be very thankful. And you've already seen, I know that it really began 4 days ago, but you've already seen more action than you have in the last 3 months. And we're going to get it together. We're informing the Army Corps of Engineers to get going because you have a lot of river breaks and a lot of areas that you're going to need some pretty big work. And they're on their way. They're going to be working much harder than they've been working in the past, and we're going to take care of it. Any questions from the press of any of the congressmen, governor, anybody?
Sir, are you going to sign an executive order on FEMA, getting rid of it? Can you say more about signing an executive order to get rid of FEMA, please?
FEMA has been a very big disappointment. They cost a tremendous amount of money. It's very bureaucratic, and it's very slow. Other than that, we're very happy with them. Okay, and I think when there's a problem with the state, I think that problem should be taken care of by the state. That's what we have states for. They take care of problems. And a governor can handle something very quickly. You know, one of the things I've noticed, because I've been doing this for a while, and we had a pretty good FEMA, but I also noticed that when they come, they end up in arguments. They're fighting all the time over who does what. It's just not a good system. This system is so beautifully designed over 250 years approximately, you know, and we'll soon be celebrating the 250th year. It's going to be a very big celebration. But it's been designed very well, and we're going to leave it that way. When North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, when everybody knows the governor of Tennessee, I think, everybody? Do you know everybody here, pretty much? I never thought of it, but you're right over the ridge.
Right over the hillside.
So you're here to help. That's great.
The people in this region, including Tennessee, the people of Appalachia, are grateful that you are here and that you haven't forgotten them. And that there are other disasters, but this one was enormous for both North Carolina and Tennessee. So thank you.
You know, I've seen a lot of disasters. And when I came here right after, the day after. And when I came here, I couldn't believe it, actually. I couldn't believe the damage. And I've seen a lot of them. This was more like a tornado than it was what we witnessed. So we're going to get it very much taken care of. Good job. That's nice that you came. And so you call it you're right over the ridge, right, Tennessee?
Over the ridge, yes.
I like Tennessee, too. Let's see, where did I get more votes, Tennessee or North Carolina? I hate to tell you, North Carolina, it was Tennessee.
There's one of the counties in this disaster that had 88% for you. So
88%, yeah. No, it's the people are just incredible people. Yeah. So, do you have any questions, press?
President, you talked about conditions being placed on aid to California, voter ID, and the like. Are there any conditions that you're going to put on aid to North Carolina?
We're going to do a lot for North Carolina. You know, they've been very slow. I don't know why it's been so bad. This has been one of the worst I've seen. Katrina, of course, you know, was something that obviously that was a long time ago. That was not good. But this has been very slow. I don't know if that was for political reasons because they lost the state. You know, Biden lost the state. Maybe he felt he doesn't care. Maybe there were other reasons. I don't know. But this has been very slow. By any standard, this has been very slow. And we're gonna make up for lost time.
No conditions you're going to push for aid.
Well, in California, I have a condition. In California, we want them to have voter ID so the people have a voice, because right now the people don't have a voice because you don't know who's voting, and it's very corrupt. And we also want them to release the water. If they released the water, they wouldn't have had a problem. If they released the water when I told them to, because I told them to do it 7 years ago, if they would have done it, you wouldn't have had the problem that you had. You might not have even had a fire. So But here I don't have that. It's a different thing. You got hit by a storm. The people are incredible. They worked really well. Franklin was fantastic, and other groups. By the way, other groups came in that were also fantastic, and other states came in. Tennessee and a couple of others came in, and they really helped. That's the way it's supposed to be. No, this is a different kind of a thing.
Mr. President, have you decided how much funding you would allocate for disaster relief in North Carolina?
About what?
Have you decided how much funding you would allocate for disaster relief?
I haven't. I have to see what it is.
Are you disappointed that Senator Schiff hasn't joined you on this trip? It's reported he invited Senator Schiff to join you on this trip and he was too busy. Are you disappointed?
I don't know. I was told that Schiff was going to travel with us to California. I wasn't thrilled, to be honest with you. And I saw him last night on television. It looks like he got hit with a baseball bat or something. What happened to him? Something happened to him. It looked like he got hit. It looked like he got beat around. But I'll ask Caroline to find out what happened to him. No, if he wanted to come out, I would have done that. But I don't know. Somebody said that he wanted to come on the plane, but I think he's staying back for the votes. There's some pretty good votes going on. Yeah.
Mr. President, what is your timeline for getting rid of FEMA?
For this one.
You just talked about possibly getting rid of FEMA. What timeline are you looking at, and how would you do that?
Well, we're looking here. Here, you're talking about. To start, we're going to start immediately timeline, and to finish, it's going to be a period of time. You know, people are also rebuilding their houses. How long does it take to build a house, right? It takes some time. And I want them to build houses bigger, better, nicer than they had before, so they can have, at least they get something out of this disaster. This was a real disaster. No, timeline will be fast. In terms of infrastructure, I think very fast. I want to thank Elon, because Elon was able to get us communication systems, as you know, Starlink. We had no communication. The first day I got here, I was asked by one of the people, one of the really great representatives, professionals, that is there any way you could get Starlink here, because they had no communication whatsoever. And I called up Elon Musk, and he had, hundreds of units brought here, brought immediately. And it's hard to get. They couldn't get them before. And that made a lot of difference. I think it saved a lot of lives, actually. Yeah. Infrastructure-wise, we'll do it quickly.
Sir, can you just talk about how long you think it might take to get rid of FEMA? What's the timeline on that? If you're going to roll it back?
Yeah, I would say, look, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not really thinking about FEMA right now here. I'm thinking about Michael Watley, and I'm thinking about the 3 Congress people that you just heard from, and also the other people in Congress, and they'll be working with the governor. They'll be working with the governor, so that's what I see.
Change the subject real quickly. The Laken Riley Act was signed by Speaker Johnson yesterday.
Right.
When do you anticipate to sign that into
Well,
office?
we're honored by that. Laken Riley, I was there at the time, and we had a big meeting with the parents right after that horrible thing took place. And we have an act. You all know what that act represents. And it was a bipartisan bill. Many Democrats signed onto it. That's something that is a tribute to Laken, a beautiful young lady who was killed viciously by an illegal alien. And we passed a very powerful bill, and it was just approved, and we'll have a ceremony sometime very shortly. I'll be signing it. In other words, if you're asking, I will definitely be signing it. Okay? Yeah.
Mr. President, the security detail for Anthony Fauci was terminated last night, and I'm wondering if you have any comment on that.
About what?
The security detail for Anthony Fauci was terminated last night, sir. Do you have a comment?
No, I think, when you work for government, at some point your security detail comes off. And, you can't have them forever. So I think it's very standard. If it would be for somebody else, you wouldn't be asking the question. The question is very fair. But, you work for government. We took some off, other people too. But you can't have a security detail for the rest of your life because you work for government. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Would you feel partially responsible if something were to happen to, say, Dr. Fauci
No.
or John Bolton?
No. They all made a lot of money. They can hire their own security, too. All the people you're talking about, they can go out. I can give them some good numbers of very good security people. They can hire their own security. They all made a lot of money. Fauci made a lot of money. They all did. So if they felt that strongly, I think that certainly I would not take responsibility.
Now, North Carolina is a state that relies on trade and manufacturing. Are you going to have an announcement on new tariffs coming soon? Is there a timeline now?
Yeah, the tariffs are going to make our country rich. We're going to be a rich, rich country very soon. Tariffs are going to make it rich, and competence. We have common sense, competence, and tariffs. The word tariff is one of the most beautiful words in the dictionary.
Now, Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary of the United Kingdom.
And President Trump is talking to first responders there in Asheville, North Carolina, and taking some questions from reporters. The big breaking news to come out of this, he is planning on issuing an executive order to potentially get rid of FEMA, calling the organization slow, bureaucratic, and a, quote, disaster. He also went on to answer questions from reporters. And after this, he's going to meet with a family who lost their home in Hurricane Helene. Then he is scheduled to head to Southern California to tour the area devastated by the recent wildfires and also to address wildfire relief from the federal government. He's talking about looking into voter ID and potentially diverting water from Northern California as being some of the contingencies for issuing aid to that region. So far, no plans to officially meet with Governor Gavin Newsom, the governor there of California, but the governor has said that he will meet Trump on the tarmac, so we'll wait to see what happens there. And it's important to note that, these impromptu press conferences, he covers a multitude of issues unrelated to some of the emergency relief efforts. He just answered a question about the security detail being revoked for Anthony Fauci and John Bolton, and also a question about tariffs. So we'll have the very latest on all the things that he is covering with these addresses to the press. But I want to bring in CBS News political reporter Olivia Rinaldi. She has the very latest on the Trump administration's moves.
I thought you were coming to this.
Olivia, I think we have you there. I want to bring in, though, first, CBS News national correspondent Dave Malkoff. Dave, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. And we're standing in the disaster zone right here in Asheville.
And then what can you tell us about this, the reaction from the folks in North Carolina? The president saying he's going to issue an executive order to potentially get rid of FEMA. Can you tell us a little bit about what FEMA has been able to do for the people in that state and the people that are still waiting for aid? I mean, how much are people who have lost their homes, how much are they relying on this funding?
Well, we've heard some people who have had a lot of success with the FEMA buyout program, where they buy out the houses that can no longer be built on the area because there's been mudslides or there's been other issues where they can't build a house again, so their house is wiped off the map. But other people are very frustrated with FEMA. We've got some Trump supporters right here. This is Mark and Leslie, and you guys point to where your house is.
We're just up the hill.
There's a pink house on the top of the hill, and we're right behind that house.
So you are very close to this disaster. Now, you were standing out here, so you didn't hear what President Trump just said seconds ago, but I'll relay it to you. He said that he may be signing an executive order to get rid of FEMA altogether. What do you think about that?
That's really difficult to say. I don't have any information about that. I think what I appreciate is him coming and shining a light on North Carolina again. We are still in a disaster area. We still need support, whether it's governmental support, whether it's nonprofits, non-governmental organizations. We just need the support and the help.
This is around a $60 billion disaster here. Is that something that the state could support, or is that something the federal government would need to support as well?
I personally don't think either of the state or the federal government can afford to support that. That's why we appreciate so much the nonprofits like Samaritan's Purse, the Franklin Graham's organization, the kitchens that have come in, the World Kitchen.
World Central Kitchen,
yes,
Jose Andres.
Yes, and they came in and they took over our favorite barbecue place, Bear's Barbecue, and served over 100,000 meals from the disaster to about 2 weeks ago when they folded up shop. Anyways, it's that kind of stuff, the sweat equity of the community, that is making the real difference here in terms of rebuilding what we have. Our federal government's way too much debt they're holding right now, and anything they can do to streamline themselves and be more effective with the monies they have, we would appreciate it, whether it's the state or the federal government.
Some people that I've talked to this week, and I've been out here all week, have said that in some ways, since it's been 115 days or more since the hurricane, and so much has happened. We've had a presidential election, we've had terrorist attacks, we've had the fires in California. So much has happened in there. Is it hard to keep a focus on this disaster when so much is going on in the world right now?
I think certainly nationally and maybe internationally that's true. I mean, our hearts are breaking over what's happening in California with the fires. I think that's why we're talking about, yes, we want outside help. We can't depend on that completely. We really need tourists. We need tourists to come back. Please come back to our beautiful community. But we are working together and supporting each other. We'll take outside support, of course, as well, but we can't depend on that.
And it's good to note that Western North Carolina doesn't just look like this. No. There are places that were untouched by the hurricane, but there is an area bigger than Rhode Island that can never be built on again because of the geologic landslide issues. Do you think that this is a fundamental change for this area? Or are you kind of on a different trajectory from now?
Well, I've not lived here through the last two big floods, one going back to 1918.
1916.
Or 16, yes. And so I can't speak from experience, but I can tell you that as a community, we've grown stronger. We've gotten out of our houses and met our neighbors and supported them, and we've become much closer. And regardless of the landscape, that's all that really matters in terms of having a happy life, is being in community with your friends, your neighbors, your church, and supporting each other. And that's strengthened through this.
It's WNC Strong.
That's right. WNC Strong.
But
Come visit.
We do, yeah. We love tourists. Our community was $25 million less revenue, tax revenue. We're talking about Asheville last quarter because of the lack of tourism. So to ask this Asheville then to step up with more money to help, we're cutting back staff at our libraries, our parks, our police department, our fire departments because of the lack of tax revenue. So we need the tourists to come back, or fundamentally this area will change.
Well, Liz, I think they hold the sentiment of Western North Carolina here. It is a big disaster that will take a long time to clean up and a long time to come back, because this is so much damage and it's so widespread, and it goes all the way up into Tennessee, and they're just hoping that something changes here, that something goes forward in bringing this vibrant community back to life.
And I think Western North Carolina strong.
WNC strong. That was heard loud and clear, no question. And the spirit of those individuals is just so inspiring in the midst of so much devastation caused by those hurricanes. Dave Malkoff reporting from Asheville. Thank you so much for that, Dave. All right, let's go to Olivia Rinaldi now. I want to talk about the politics of all of this, Olivia, and this breaking news. The president saying that he intends to sign an executive order to address the future of FEMA, possibly getting rid of the organization altogether. What can you tell us?
Yeah, quite a bit of news there from President Trump during that press conference briefing in Asheville, North Carolina, saying of FEMA that he may get rid of it if he determines that's necessary. And at the very least, he's going to be signing an executive order to overhaul and reform it. He called that agency slow and bureaucratic. And if Trump officials I've talked to about what this actually means, they tell me that they trust the people on the ground in those states that are impacted more than they trust the federal government to help them with disaster relief funds. I just spoke spoke with an administration official who told me that the idea of this is that no longer will they be going to FEMA asking for some of those funds, but rather straight to the White House telling them what they need. They'll allocate those funds, and then ultimately it's up to the states to decide how to disperse those funds, where they put them, how they'll handle some of this disaster relief. You heard Trump there criticizing really the reaction of FEMA to Hurricane Helene, specifically in North Carolina, saying that this slow process has really hampered their ability to recover. And he wants to essentially change all of that, reform this, overhaul it, and make it a little bit easier for those people on the ground.
And Olivia, the president is also scheduled to visit California today, Southern California. He's going to head to Santa Monica to tour the wildfire damage in the Palisades area. But this trip comes as Trump continues to exchange some pretty harsh words with Governor Newsom over those recovery efforts in that area. This is what he had to say about that visit. Let's take a listen.
Mr. President, funding to Los Angeles because of its sanctuary city policy.
I want to see two things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote. And I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state. Those are the two things. After that, I will be the greatest president that California has ever seen. I want the water to come down and come down to Los Angeles and also go out to all the farmland that's barren and dry.
Now, we want to know that city and fire officials in Los Angeles County have pushed back on the president's claims, saying it was technical issues and also the overwhelming demand on fire hydrants that played into the struggle to fight these fires. Olivia, does the president have the power to withhold emergency funding from California?
Yeah, it's a good question, Liz. A lot of FEMA's budget is actually allocated by Congress. So think of it in two senses. There is the operational budget that they have, but there's the disaster relief fund. Now that fund, it's kind of like a checkbook. These disasters happen, and then the governors of these states or local officials then reach out to the federal government, particularly the White House, and ask them for some of that reimbursement in cleaning up debris, rebuilding roads, some of the firefighter overtime costs, all of these sorts of things that go into disaster relief, they then reach out to. So in that aspect, some of the funds that have been allocated through FEMA's disaster relief fund that was approved by the White House, he could have some control over, but that budget's ultimately set by Congress. So important to note there. Obviously, he's putting some conditions on that aid. So we'll have to see later today upon these meetings and briefings that he's having in California whether or not he'll be making any announcements saying you have to have some restrictions on voter ID or release some of that water from Northern California in order for